Welcome to the Crypt of Wax. Today we are talking Worm. His fourth full-length Necropalace. If you're kind of familiar with Worm, you'll know that this is a bit of a journey that he's gone on. But for those unfamiliar, he's been around for a while. I think he formed in 2014. Very much Death Doom early doors. The last full length for Everglade came out in 2021. That was real, like atmosphere drenched, like Death Doom, really cool. But then he sort of had a bit of a shift and went into this sort of like black metal realm, like this symphonic black metal, leaning heavily into that kind of like early Cradle of Filth aesthetic, like really pushing that symphonic like visual and sound. Brought in an additional guitar player. What's his name? Phil Tugas from Archamentus, and also did Zycredus last year in 2025. So brought this guy in 2021. Then did a EP and a split, but this is the first full length as a duo, Necropalace. Mike, I don't know if you're as well versed with Worm as potentially I am. So is this your first dip in?
That would definitely not, because I was listening to you very intently, because I was like, I don't know any of this stuff. I listened to I remember on your recommendation checking out for Everglade a while ago. I remember I didn't give it that much time. It's like Death Doom. I remember it had a very swampy, kind of murky sort of feel to it, but very
Yeah.
nice. I remember like really enjoying the clean tone that he had on it in that kind of realm.
Yeah.
I gave it a bit of a listen back today, because I wanted to hit. I knew it was quite a difference in what he's done on this Necropalace album compared to that one. Although I think I read somewhere, did the splits that he did that start to sort of tease in what direction he was going to go in going forward?
Yeah, so there was Blue Nothing, which was an EP in 2022. So this was like the first release with Phil on guitar and like songwriting, as well as what's the guy's name from Phantom Slaughter. Yeah,
Phantom Slaughter.
that
Who's
was their first.
is there a real drummer? I don't think there is. Is there?
No, I don't believe so. I don't actually know on this record if they got someone in or whether it was programmed, because I know that Phil Tugas is a really good drum programmer. I mean, as an instrumentalist, that guy is insane. I guess we'll talk more about that when we go into the songs. But yeah, so sorry, Mike. So was this like your real? Obviously, you checked out for Everglade, but was this the most time you sort of given
Yeah.
to a Worm record?
Yeah. It was actually, and it was an interesting listen for me, because this is, I'll be honest, this isn't it's not my sort of black metal that I enjoy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't choose myself to listen to this sort of style. So it's always interesting when I've got to listen to something like this for the pod, which we don't really cover this sort of style of black metal very much, do we?
Well, here's a question for you, Mike. Would you actually call it a black metal record? I mean, obviously, like you look at the cover art, it's heavily like it looks like a symphonic black metal record, especially with the logo and like their aesthetics and whatnot. But it's not a straightforward black metal record, is it? There's a whole heap of influence going on here.
There is, but I do feel like the underlying
The main
kind
bulk.
of vibe of it is like it's sort of symphonic black metal. It reminds me of again, a band I don't really know that much about, but the bits I've heard reminds me of Dimmu Borgir, that kind of stuff.
Early Dimmu. Yeah, for sure, man. I don't know. I guess on the whole, you're probably right. It does lean more into the kind of symphonic black metal sound, but I mean, there is Death Doom in this in a lot, like bringing in his old style, bringing it forward into this. There's a lot of funeral doom, which is, I guess, would be like Phil's influence, because he was in Atramentus, which is like a funeral doom band. There's a lot of 80s goth influence as well, especially in some of the later songs, which we'll get onto. It's also
There's about 80s metal in those solos as well, isn't there? It's like Eddie Van Halen.
Huge 80s influence in those solos. And it's kind of wrapped up in a bit of like a progressive feel to it, right? Because it's not like the songs aren't structured. They're very long songs, right? I think like the longest one being 12 minutes. The songs average out between like 8 to 9 minutes. There's like a 10-minute one in there, but they don't really like repeat too much. It is quite a progressive like structure going on, which I guess if you're into that thing, then it's going to be enjoyable. But for you, I don't know if that is your cup of tea.
This was one of those albums for me that there was some I really, so especially some of the electronic parts of it, some of the synths and stuff. I really enjoyed the kind of theatrical and cinematic aspects it added to them, and I thought the atmosphere of it with this whole, it had that kind of. They kind of got when you listen to what they were doing on Foreverglade, they'd gone from the swamps to the castle, if you know what I mean. You had
Yeah,
that vampiric kind of influence on. Then I thought it was done really, really well.
that's the thumbnail headline right there.
From the swamps to the castle.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, but I did find with this album, like there was I listened to it and I was like, I can't I can't remember any I can't
yeah.
like there's nothing that sticks out for me that's memorable. Like I can't pick out a particular part of it really, because it's just there's a lot there, but I don't know. And there's so much that nothing nothing stands out.
There's a lot going on. Before I go into it, I
But it's
guess
at the point because the atmosphere of it's very, very good.
very
So
good.
is it just all about just being immersed in the atmosphere
I
as opposed to listening to it for individual bits that you want to hear?
I think possibly. Let me just kind of prefix, like for those new here, we don't really talk about these off air. We just come on here and talk about the albums, so it's more of a discussion. So if you're kind of wanting a track by track playthrough of an album review, maybe this isn't going to be the best place. But if you like hearing about people talk about metal, then this is the place. Subscribe, because we put out videos every Wednesday and Friday. But yeah, I think, Mike, that it possibly is because when I think back at the previous Worm, I can't really remember anything from Foreverglade in terms of like riffs or whatnot, but I just remember the atmosphere and like the feeling, like you say, that
Yeah,
swampy, like
that's just what he's trying to conjure, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
And I think it is that with this. However, that feels a bit like lazy to call it that because there's so much technicality on display here. Like the guitar work for a start is insane. There's solos.
yeah,
There's like 4 solos in every song, and they're like
yeah,
sizable solos where they're not. The guy, I'm assuming that it's Phil, the new guy they brought in, because his guitar work is insane. But they're not like blagged or kind of phoned in solos. Each one is like an insane, like you said, Eddie Van Halo-esque kind of solo, isn't it?
yeah. And they even bring in the guy from Megadeth to have a
Yeah.
go at the end as well. He crops up and does one towards it, and his one's nuts as well.
Yeah, there's a feature in the final track from Marty Friedman, and like, yeah, insane. It's. Do you think that for the non-guitar player that this is maybe going to be an accessible album? I don't know, man. I feel like they nerd out on this for guitar music.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But, I think you've got to. I feel like this album's going to be a bit divisive, right? Because I get the impression, and from listening to the older stuff, there's going to be fans of what he was doing before that are not going to like this
Yeah,
at all, right? Because e- even even if you just jump from this into like doing like a symphonic black metal album, I think that's one thing. But if you're not into guitar solos,
yeah.
like if really technical kind of 80s sounding guitar solos aren't your thing, then it's got to be off putting for this album because there's so much of it and it is very, very impressive. But I'll be honest, I'm impressed by that sort of playing, and it is enjoyable to a point for me because you're listening to someone who's such a virtuoso at their instrument. But my style of guitar solos that I enjoy to listen to is not
Not this.
that. No, it's not like that. So I imagine that's probably a case for quite a lot of people as well,
Do you think?
who listen to
Do you
metal.
think there's too much going on this record?
Guitar solo
I
wise.
think everything in terms of like genre meshing, guitar solo wise, like variant in like vocals. I mean, all right, the vocals kind of mostly stay within one register, but there are the kind of lower ones as well, and there is a little bit of singing, somewhat choir esque going on in a couple
Can
songs.
I say something about the vocals? And I don't know,
Do I?
there were parts of the vocals that reminded me of like early 2000s,
Yeah,
like MySpace.
yeah.
Like,
I,
you had this like
I know the exact bit.
mid range,
Yeah,
and then you do a low, like back and forth, and it had that kind of MySpace deathcore kind of
I know exactly what you
thing
mean,
about it.
and
Yeah.
I don't really enjoy the vocals, to be honest with Worm. I don't listen to Worm for like lyrical content or like for the vocals. They're almost quite secondary for me. For me, it's like music and atmosphere. But there was a moment in the final track, the vocal pattern, it was around 4 minutes mark. It was so cheesy and cheap, and it felt exactly like that kind of what you were saying, that kind of MySpace era
Yeah.
metalcore almost. It's obviously maybe like somewhere deep in his psyche, that kind of feeling. But yeah, I don't know. Vocally, it's I can take it or leave it with Worm. I don't really rate the vocals too much, but that's not why I'll put Worm on. You know,
Yeah. Although when you listen to the older stuff, I feel like when he's just doing the low kind of death doom stuff,
makes more
it
sense.
works more. It makes more sense. Um, I I do think guitar solo wise, it was a bit much. Like
Too much.
there didn't need to be as many as there was. That did I felt like I came a little bit numb to how good the solos were because you were
Mm,
hearing so many of them. Um, that they it was so many that they didn't end up standing out as much as they should because you by the end and the album's an hour long, so by the time you get to the end and Marty Friedman's popped up with his guitar as well,
yeah.
you've like you've heard so much. I mean, I haven't heard an album with so many guitar solos in this probably ever.
Oh, it's crazy, mate. That's such a good point. Like, I know what you mean. There was a little bit of solo fatigue towards the end. Like, I think there's like a
Yeah.
5 minute solo in the first track, and then there's like the whole song is basically a solo at the final track, and
I think it's like the second half of the final song is just all guitar
pure
solo, isn't it, for
solo.
about 7
Yeah,
or 8 minutes?
and like you
Yeah.
said, like they're technically insane, but then it's true. Like nothing really does stand out. When I first listened to this record, I'll be honest, I didn't really enjoy it, even though I love symphonic black metal and I really enjoyed Worm's
Yeah.
previous stuff. So on paper, this should have been such a great mix. It was like, oh, okay, this is enjoyable, but I wasn't like pulled in. I think because there was just a bit too much going on. When I gave it subsequent listens and kind of dived into it, there were moments that I really loved. But it is true what you're saying. Like, there's not much to like grab and pull onto. It is just more like an overwhelming atmosphere rather than like a catchiness, you know?
I think this is one of those albums that if there's not something there to pull you back, I don't know if you would ever have that intention of going to listen to it again because it's it's not appealing unless there's something there for you because there's so much to unpack. There's
Yeah.
nothing memorable. So I think you've got to buy into what he's doing overall on this album to want to give it that amount of time because I do think probably if you listen to this album a lot, you will probably get more enjoyment out of it each time.
Yeah. Which is
Um,
true, which is what happened to me. I think I will go back to it every now and then, but it's not one that I'm like dying to listen to. I think it's because there is a lot
no,
going on. But you have to give them credit for the whole package, man. The aesthetics, the music video, the promos, like they've really nailed this vibe. And like I love it when bands commit to stuff like that. Like,
mm.
you know, if they didn't do that and they just produced this album, I don't know, would it be as cool? Probably not. But I really appreciate when a band goes all out with aesthetics and like, you know, theatrics. And I think it marries up to the kind of music quite well. But yeah, I think this is definitely one to check out at least once just to give it like a run through because there is so much on display that you'll probably find something in there that's quite cool. But let us know what you thought of it if it was just a little bit.
Oh, John, can I say one thing I thought? And this, this album kind of had a real 80s sort of vibe to it and atmosphere and
Yeah.
stuff as well. An album it reminded me of, not necessarily in sound entirely, but in vibe was. Do you remember the Hooded Menace album we did last year?
Yeah.
That
Oh,
was
yeah.
really
That was 80s
really
heavy.
steeped in 80s sort of vibe, and I felt like it had a similar sort of thing. And then when you think of their artwork and the way that all works with it as well, it had that sort of package
Yeah.
like it does with this one.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It was for this. It's almost as if this album wanted to come out like late 80s, early 90s, didn't it? Because you do have that early 90s like black metal,
Mm,
symphonic black metal
yeah.
edge to it, but you do have that 80s goth feel to it. But then there's obviously a load of Death Doom as well. Yeah, I mean, look, check it out if you haven't already. There's definitely a lot on display here.
It'll be hard to ignore. It's getting a lot of hype, isn't it? There's
Yeah,
a lot of people talking about it.
and if you have checked out, what do you think of it? Let us know because is it too much? Has he gone too far, or is this like right up your street? But yeah, let us know and give a like and a subscribe. We put out videos every Wednesday and Friday covering the latest metal releases. But yes, we'll hopefully catch you in the next one.